If you work in sales, on commission, or maybe you're a freelancer and you do a bunch of contract work for people, or maybe you work in the gig economy, you drive for Uber or DoorDash, either way, you have an irregular income, so a budget isn't going to work for you, right? Wrong. Even if your income changes every single month, we can still create an effective budget that accounts for everything and helps you save more money at the same time. And today, I'm going to show you how. Hi, I'm Jacob Wade from Lunch Money. I'm a financial coach. And if you're a freelancer or a business owner, or you simply just have an unpredictable income, this video is for you. Today, I want to show you how to create a budget on an irregular income without complicating it. And it'll help you take control of your money, allocate it toward the things that are important, and get through some of those months where the income isn't so great. And if you stick to the end of the video, I'll show you how to do all of this in the Lunch Money app to keep everything organized and on track. All right, let's get it. All right, the first thing you need to do is perform a financial audit. What I mean by this is you actually need to dig through your bank and credit card statements and look at how much income you have made over the last couple of months on average, as well as where your money has disappeared to for those expenses. Now, the best way to do this is to look at the last 90 days or the last 3 months, and you can average out your income, especially if you have a variable income. You can have sort of a baseline of like, I always make about this much money. And then on the expenses side, you can look at it and go, okay, I spent about this much. Here's how much my bills are. Here's how much my groceries are, all of those things. Now, if that sounds a little bit overwhelming, of course, Lunch Money makes this easy. You can just sign up for a free 30-day trial, link in the description below, connect all your financial accounts, and we'll bring in all of that data. So you can actually look, here's all the money that I made. Here's every time I got paid, all my deposited commissions and tips, things like that. And it'll show you month over month, how much do I make per month on average. You can look at your lowest months, your highest months, things like that. And on the expenses side, we'll automatically categorize all of those transactions and show you where your money has been going. So you'll have like a baseline budget to start with, but you're going to need to do this financial audit so we can start to work with realistic numbers when you start to put together this budget. All right, step one for creating a budget with an irregular income is to truly just start with the worst case scenario. You want to create a budget based on the lowest possible income month. So let's say, for example, you're in sales and you're 50% commission, but your baseline salary is about $4,000 a month take home. You're going to want to budget based on that $4,000 a month. That might feel like very little, and you might think, okay, there's no way I'm not going to make any sales, but it's a good idea to start there, and then we can add in things later. So your baseline budget amount would be that $4,000. And again, if you're in a freelancer or in the gig economy, just look in Lunch Money and look at all of those details to go, okay, my worst month was about this. Let's start here. And if you have a higher income month, we'll show you what to do with that later in this video. All right, so once you know kind of your baseline lowest possible month of income, we're gonna go to your expenses and create like a baseline budget. Again, if you use the Lunch Money to bring in all of your spending data, you'll know, okay, this is about what I spent. But what you want to focus on truly is just your fixed expenses and your variable expenses. So fixed expenses are things like your rent, your car payment, your credit card minimum payments, subscriptions, things that are going to go out every month on a regular basis. And truly, we're just going to focus on the needs here. Right? We're not going to add a bunch of extras in. We're just going to budget because we're using your baseline income. We're going to do baseline budgeting here. Just create a budget based on here's what I need, right? I need shelter, right? I need a roof over my head. I got to pay the utilities. I need transportation to get to work. And you need to make sure that you have money for food, right? So those are sort of like the big core baseline things. So focus on those. And then on the variable expenses side, again, groceries, restaurants, online shopping, clothing, whatever those daily type expenses are, you're going to want to create a baseline for that as well. The goal is to really just focus on what you need right now. We're going to create, it's almost like a bare bones budget that you're going to start with, and then what we'll do is we'll add in some extras later. All right, now the reason we're starting with this bare bones budget is the goal is to save up a buffer, because the way that variable income works is you might have some great months and some not so great months. And what you want is to have a savings buffer to help you take care of those lower months to make sure you can still hit your savings goals and have money set aside and pay the bills. So the goal would be is maybe open a savings account, call it buffer or call it an emergency fund, whatever you want to call that account. In your baseline budget, you have your income, you have your basic needs and expenses. Anything left over, we're going to roll into that buffer account. The goal would be to grow that account so that, let's say you have 2 or 3 months that just go poorly, right? It's a tough time finding work, whatever that is, you can use some of those funds to help pay the bills during those months. And then when you have a really high month, let's say you double your income for a couple of months, great. Take a big chunk of that and put it into this buffer account. The goal is to sort of smooth sort of the ups and downs, the roller coaster of variable income life, so that you can actually have a smoother ride along the way. Now, experts recommend having at least 3 months of savings set aside. So maybe that's a goal you can set up for is, hey, based on my baseline needs expenses, maybe I need about $3,500 or $4,000 a month. So then 3 times that would be close to $10,000 to $12,000 set aside. So set that amount, try to hit that goal. The goal is to build a fund that helps take care of those crazy ups and downs in your income. Now, for the actual budget. You're going to have your baseline income, your needs expenses. If you have a great month, this is where you could potentially add in some extras. So maybe you can go to restaurants. Maybe you can go on a trip or buy some gifts or do some fun things for yourself because you have a better income month. Of course, you're going to make sure you're still setting aside money for the months when the income is lower, but this is where you're going to kind of flex with it, right? You have a baseline budget, and then what I would create is a section just called extras. Like, what are the things that I would add to my budget if I had more income this month? And again, the goal would be keep a close eye on your income and your expenses and how things are going. Of course, Lunch Money makes this easy. You can sync your financial accounts to the app, and we'll show you as things go in and out, as money comes in, as your expenses go out. You can just keep an eye on it to make sure that you're not overextending yourself. And then finally, once you have the baseline budget to put together, you're going to track your progress. You have to keep an eye on how things are going. Just creating a plan doesn't help you execute it. You actually need to see what's going on. So as your income comes in, make sure it's allocated toward your fixed expenses, toward your variable expenses, towards some savings into that buffer account, right? Keep an eye on it. Make sure the money ends up where it needs to go. If something pops up, make sure that you allocate for that, you account for it, put it into that budget to make sure you can take care of those expenses so you don't have to dip into the credit cards and go further into debt because you weren't keeping an eye on where your money was going. So for example, like we talked about earlier, maybe your baseline income is about $4,000 a month. Your rent is $1,300 a month, and you've got some other fixed expenses that add up to about $2,000. And then with groceries and other daily spending, maybe you spend another $1,000. And then you're going to set aside $1,000 a month toward your buffer account. Or if you have a higher income month, you can now go into those extras. And so you can go out to eat, and you can go on a trip with friends or take a weekend or go do wine tasting or something like that, right? So you want to make sure that you have, but the way you physically use this budget is you're mostly just focused on fixed and variable expenses. Take care of the needs first. And then if you make more than that $4,000, boom, you can start putting money toward extras. But you're always going to allocate that $1,000 a month to build that buffer account. And then once that buffer account is in place, that $1,000 a month should also go toward things like savings and future retirement, stuff like that. So the goal would be have this core piece, make sure you're always saving this amount, and then as you make more money, you can add in some of these really fun extras. Okay, now I told you at the beginning of the video, Lunch Money makes this really, really easy to create a budget on a irregular income. Let me show you how this works. I wanted to just show you how this works in Lunch Money. If you have an irregular income, how you can sort of split it out between your needs and then any extras. We're going to create that baseline budget here. So if you check out the app here, I'm just in the budget view, and you can see I've sort of put together the budget. But the way that I split these out is I've got necessities and I've got just the extras, right? And so we're going to have a budgeted amount for the necessities, and then we'll add in any extras for when you have higher income months. You can actually afford those things. And so the way that I set that up is if you just go into the setup here, you'll see the categories section. And what's cool is you can adjust and edit all of these categories in any way, shape, or form. But what I did to create the necessities and extras groups essentially is I added a category group. So you can see here, if I go in, I can, I'll get out of the way here. I've got the category group. I just named it necessities. I just wanted to bucket in the things that you have to pay for, the things that it's non-negotiable, right? You got to pay for rent and utilities and transportation, things like that. So under necessities, if you go to modify categories, you can see I checked all these boxes. There's a whole list of categories you can choose from. You can add new categories over here, but I just went in and said, okay, these things are necessary, right? Car insurance, car maintenance, your car payment, right? Transportation stuff, your cell phone, credit card minimum payments, your gas, your groceries, household items, internet, pets, right? Utilities, rent. You got to make sure those things are covered. And so I added all of those into this group. Now you have a whole section called necessities, and it lists those things. And we'll create a quick budget. I'll show you how that works. Now on the extras, I added in things like restaurants, entertainment, spending cash, miscellaneous spending, things like Christmas, birthdays, vacation, right? Those things only get added if you hit higher than your baseline income. So let's go to the actual budget and see how this could work. So we talked about maybe your income is $4,000 a month is your like baseline. And then maybe you've got a side hustle, or maybe we can even call that commission, right? So if we go back to the setup, hit categories, let's call this commission. Boom. Now go back to finances. So your commission, you could set an anticipated number here. Maybe you think you're gonna have $2,000, but before we do that, let's just budget on that $4,000. And so we're gonna go through the $4,000 and we're gonna put in your necessities, right? So say your rent's $1,500. Let's say your car payment's about $300 and your utilities are about $250 a month, and your credit card minimum payment's $100. Your car insurance is $150. I'm gonna fast forward real quick. Finish these up, but then we'll talk. All right, so you can quickly see under the necessities, it's about $3,100. So your $4,000 income will cover those necessities, and you have an extra $900 to work with. So let's go down and add a few more things in, right? So we would go in here and say, okay, we do have about $100 a month. I might need to eat out when I'm on the road, or we want to set aside some money for Christmas each month. Let's make sure we set aside a couple $100 there. Or maybe let's call it 100. 200 might be a lot. And then you do want those streaming services, and you can afford it again if you stick to this basic budget here, and you're gonna want it $150 in spending cash just to have it, right? So you can see about $3,500. Now you're gonna be able to live on this basic budget. That's your baseline budget. If you have a high income month, let's say you make $6,000, or sorry, you make $2,000 in commission, and so you actually take home $6,000 for the month. Now you can start adding to more of this stuff. And in fact, we can even add different categories, right? If we go back to setup here, go to categories. So now we can add the buffer account, right? So we'll add buffer here. So we've got that category added. And if we go back to the budget, we're gonna start throwing any extra money we can at this thing, right? So you're only spending about $3,500. You make an extra $2,000. So we can put $2,500 toward this thing. Boom. So now we make sure that $2,500 goes toward this buffer account, and maybe that just rolls into next month, or again, it goes into a literal higher yield savings account outside your regular checking account. So now that you know if you make more than your baseline, you can start filling up that buffer. Then you can start adding things like a Roth IRA or saving for a house down payment, right? You can start putting goal accounts in here and start funding those things. But within Lunch Money, in addition to creating this budget, we will track everything. So as those transactions go through, you're actually going to see the totals total up here. You're going to see what's the activity, what do I have left for the month. So if a $200 grocery transaction comes through, you'll see you have $100 left. Quickly, easily, automatically, you're going to be able to see what's going on inside Lunch Money. So now you know how to budget even on a variable income, taking care of your basic needs when money is tight, but being able to add in extras and save and invest for the future when you have higher income months. And of course, making sure you have that buffer account to smooth the ride along the way. If you want to manage all of this within the Lunch Money app, simply, we have a free 30-day trial. You can sign up using the link below. You can connect your accounts to kind of see how much money do I normally make on average, where does my money go, automatically create a budget that's based on those numbers, and then track your progress along the way, setting in those extras goals and your savings goals for when you have better income months. And ultimately, all this leads to saving more money. And if you want to save even more, check out this video where I walk through 12 frugal living tips to help you save big with small changes.